So what I'm hearing is there's so many different settings in which a rehabilitation counsellor can work, and I just thought it might be useful for the audience to hear a little bit about your most recent work setting and what role that you had and what partners you interacted with, etc. So can we start off with you, Michael?
Okay, the example that comes to mind for me is recently I was called onto a case, a work cover case here in Victoria, and what happened was that the previous occupational rehab provider had not followed through on it on a number of things, and so I was called in to kind of fix things, you know. So immediately, this is in the work cover jurisdiction, so immediately what I had to do was establish the rapport and restore trust and faith with the individual client, because they'd been let down. The occupational rehab consultant, it was a consultant as opposed to a counsellor, let them down. They promised things they didn't deliver. So my role was to come in, try to restore that trust and faith, and then basically work with their psychologist and with their doctor to try to facilitate a return to work. The person was at work, but because of what had happened and their psychological state, they were at 20 or 30 hours, almost back to full-time work, when something went wrong with the relationship with the occupational rehab provider, and which set them right back. So they when I came on, they had started at 30 and they were back at 15. So it was kind of like having to rebuild that faith, that trust, and then slowly increment their time working with the allied health practitioners, with the psychologist and the claims person who was kind of jumping up and down to get things moving, because they've got timelines they have to follow. It has to be settled or back at work within a year and a half, I think it is here in Victoria. So, so anyway, having taken on that case, over a period of about 2 or 3 months, a return to work plan was put in place, regular meetings were scheduled, the client's trust and faith were restored, and that was just basically by being in touch with them more regularly, doing what I said I was going to do when it was going to be delivered. So setting expectations that are realistic and then delivering on the expectations is another discipline, key thing that I've learnt through my rehab counselling work. So not just saying something and then not following it through. So doing that, by doing that and by liaising with the claims people, negotiating things with the claims manager, we were able to expedite or facilitate a return to full employment within 3 months.
So a very successful outcome.
Successful outcome, and I only contacted the woman involved last week, and she's really happy at work, was very grateful, and so it was a win-win. Yeah.
Terrific. Thanks, Michael. Jeanette?
Well, I've had a really exciting year. About 12 months ago, a client came and asked me would I assist them with addressing psychological injury in their workplace. And so over the last year, my organisation has partnered with this particular organisation. So they're a large disability service provider in Victoria. So a very highly complex and challenging work environments, lots of occupational assault and other types of psychological stresses. So we have for the last year developed and implemented a Work Well program. So I've worked from the bottom up in terms of working directly with individuals experiencing issues and concerns related to their work that have impacts on their health and well-being. So in a very, I call it first response, so dealing with issues at their source, whether they be workplace stress or injury or chronic health conditions that are impacting their ability to remain productive within the workplace. And from the top down, so utilising all of the information, the themes and the trends from what we're working with on the ground, so the real effects we see of current policies and procedures and leadership skills and the culture of the organisation to impact the transformation of their management systems. So we've had about 60 of their people go through this program, and we've also worked with teams. So teams experiencing dysfunction that impact the team's productivity and in fact in some circumstances led to injury. So the whole emphasis is about preventing injury, but also, if there is injury, preventing disability. So not letting incapacity or impairment lead to disability, and keeping people at work while their issues and concerns or health conditions are dealt with. So it's been a really exciting year because it's working with individuals on the ground, but also influencing the organisation from a systems perspective. And we're just evaluating our program at the moment, and over the last year we've at the moment we can see about 550 less lost time work days, which is a significant impact in an organisation that is low margin, can't afford anyone to be away from the workplace really, and about $1.2 million in claims cost, different workers' compensation claims cost. So these are, this is what's going to excite the organisation, because their insurance premiums are lowering, their productivity is increasing, and they're not spending as much money on replacing staff and dealing with the impact of lost time. But importantly, the workforce, the way that the workforce is being supported in their workplace is being transformed. And that's where the real impact is in a professional sense, that the workforce is actually being better supported, that injuries are being prevented from a psychological perspective, and where somebody is injured, because the work is complex and highly challenging, that disability is being prevented. So, that's been a really exciting year for me, and we're moving into phase 2 of this program, so it's fantastic.
So you're demonstrating tangible results.
Absolutely. Yeah. You really have to demonstrate the value of what you're doing, not just for the individual that you're working with, but for the organisation, to keep them invested in the whole program.
Yep.
They can see the value for their workforce, but also they can see the bottom line.